Dear friends, welcome to this week's virtual Drasha. This week we have the incredible privilege of Parsha Chukas, and the Parsha continues in the string of what we'll call devastating events. It began a couple of weeks ago with the Chit and the sin of the spies. It continued ultimately last week into the rebellion of Korach, and then this week we find the episode of Mei Meriva. Moshe Rabbeinu given instructions to bring forth water from the rock by speaking to it. He disobeyed HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he disobeyed the divine directive, hits the rock, and although again the rock brings forth water, it brings with it catastrophic consequences for Moshe Rabbeinu. He will not enter into Eretz Yisrael. He will not lead the people into the land of Israel. He will not see, or at least he will not step foot on the holy soil of Eretz Yisrael. And I think often we read this story and we struggle to understand what is it that's going on over here. In other words, I understand the basic storyline. I understand that Moshe Rabbeinu was given instructions and he defied those instructions. And I also understand that whenever you defy instructions, there are consequences. That's the way it works. There's a relationship with Hashem. And when HaKadosh Baruch Hu asks us to do something, the expectation is that we are going to comply. And compliance brings with it incredible bracha and benefit, and non-compliance brings with it consequences. But this was Moshe. This was Moshe. Lo kam b'Yisrael k'Moshe. Oh, there was never another Navi like Moshe Rabbeinu. And so I think often we struggle to understand what is it that's actually unfolding in this story. What is it that happened here? And maybe on a deeper level, what we're really asking is, what are we to take from it? What are we to learn from it? And there's an incredible medrash. The Yalkut Shimoni says as follows, that Hashem said to Moshe, Hayilacha Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Rebbeinu Shalom said to Moshe Rabbeinu, Hayilacha Lilmod me Hagar. Moshe, you should have really learned from Hagar, right? The maidservant and then the wife of Avram Avinu. Tichsiv Vatera Be'er Mayim. Remember again, the story over here is a reference to when Sarah tells Avram that you have to send away Hagar and Yishmael. Yishmael is having a deleterious event on the spiritual maturation of Yitzchak, and for me to raise a Yitzchak in his home, I need Yishmael out. And although Avram Avinu was very resistant, HaKadosh Baruch Hu intervened, and he said, Avram, you have to listen to Sarah. Okay, so Avram Avinu goes and he expels Hagar and Yishmael. Yishmael's dying, dehydration, sunstroke, whatever it is, he's dying. And the miracle occurred, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu created a well for Hagar and for Yishmael in the middle of the desert. Incredible. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe Rabbeinu, you should have learned from Hagar. What should you have learned? Im yichidi, uma im yichidi shahayir lo zechus Avram aviv, ha'elisi lo be'er. Yishmael only had one merit. He had one thing going for him. He was the child of Avraham. And yet, for that one merit, I performed for him a tremendous miracle. I made a well in the desert. Yisrael, sheyesh lem zchus avos u'zchus haTorah shekiblu u'zchus mitzvos alachas kama v'kama. Then Klal Yisrael, who has so many more mitzvos. Klal Yisrael, again, yes, they also have the merit of their forefathers, zchus avos. They also have the merit that they received the Torah and the merit of the mitzvos that we do. Kadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe, of course I'm going to come through and give them a miracle. Incredible. So again, Kadosh Baruch Hu was giving Moshe Rabbeinu Musar, that at the end of the day, if I came through for Yishmael, who had one thing going for him, just as his father was Avram Avinu, then of course I'm going to come through for Klal Yisrael, who have the merit of their forefathers, the merit of Torah, and the merit of mitzvos. And perhaps what the Medrash is saying is as follows. Moshe Rabbeinu was upset. Moshe Rabbeinu was angry. He was upset. But more than upset and angry, he was disappointed. Because after everything that this nation had been through, after everything we saw, after Yetzias Mitzrayim, the leaving of Egypt, and the splitting of the sea, and Sinaitic revelation, those are all the good things. And the bad things, the sin of the spies, the Lashon Hara of Miriam, the rebellion of Korach, to name just a few. Moshe Rabbeinu was so disappointed that they acted this way. He was so profoundly let down by their behavior. And perhaps even like a little disillusioned with himself, because after all, every leader knows that often the behavior of the flock, leaders take that personally, and they take the behavior of the flock to be a reflection of their own leadership, their own qualities, their own abilities. And sometimes when the followers fail, when the flock fails, the leader feels like a failure as well. Moshe Rabbeinu is profoundly disappointed, disillusioned, and just angry, just upset. And Moshe Rabbeinu perhaps fell into a very common relationship trap, which is We often view people through the prism of the present while ignoring the entirety of relationship history. Somebody hurts me, somebody upsets me, someone does something that I don't like. Often all I see is that event. I don't see what happened before it. I don't see the years and years of beautiful relationship history. I don't see all the times that person came through for me, all the times that person helped me, all the times that person loved me. All I see is the failure. All I see is the letdown. All I see is the hurt. All I see is the other through the prism of the present, with absolutely no historical relationship context. It happens to all of us. It happens in our marriages. It happens in our friendships. It happens with community. All you name the relationship, we do this all the time. And perhaps that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu was telling Moshe Rabbeinu. He was saying, Moshe, you're just looking at them through the prism of the present. You're looking at them in this moment, and in this moment, they are severely misbehaving. In this moment, they are terrible nudniks. In this moment, their behavior is reprehensible and unforgivable. But what about what came before it? What about the Nasev and Nishma that they said, blind acceptance of Torah? What about the fact that they went through the open sea, having absolutely no idea what was going to occur? What about the fact that they followed Mi HaKadosh Baruch Hu out into the desert? Lech tech acharai b'midbar be'eretz lo zarua. What about all of those things? What about the fact that on a day in, day out, they're following the cloud, they're following the fire to Eretz Yisrael? What about all the beautiful stuff? What about all the good stuff? What about all the chesed? What about Matovu Ohalecha Yaakov? What about all the beautiful things? Perhaps HaKadosh Baruch Hu is taking Moshe Rabbeinu to task because all Moshe is doing is seeing them through the prism of the present, through the prism of what is right now. Just seeing them through this moment of episodic failure and ignoring the entire historical relationship context. How can you look at a person just through the prism of the present without seeing them in their totality? You know, there's a beautiful mashal. There's a mashal of a king who was going to die. He realized that his end was near and he had two sons. And they were both wonderful young men, and he just wasn't sure who to give his throne to, right? Who should rule when he was no longer here. And he calls over his first son and he says to his first son, here's your job. I want you to travel the kingdom. Take a year to travel the kingdom. And I want you to come back and I want you to find a truly good person. A truly good person. The son says, yes, father, sets out on his journey. And for a year, he goes to every corner of the kingdom, trying to find a truly good person. Comes back after, he says, father, I'm back empty-handed. You know, I met a lot of really good people, but like the more and more I kind of dug down into their personalities, I saw this one has this fault, this one has this problem, this one has this is broken here, this is broken there. And I realized that they were good people, but no one was truly good. The king said, okay, thank you. King calls over his second son and he says, I want you to go out into the kingdom and I want you to spend the year meeting everyone. And I want you to come back and I want you to identify for me a truly bad person. Son says, okay, goes out, spends a year meeting everyone, comes back a year later, he says, Father, I failed you. You know, I met like a lot of really challenged people and a lot of people that I thought were just bad. All kinds of criminals and this and that and all people involved in all different kinds of vices and different things. And I said, oh, finally, I met that bad person, the truly bad person. He says, Father, but you know, as I spoke to them, and as I tried to kind of peel back the layers of their personality, I saw that every single one of those profoundly, quote unquote, broken people had good, had beauty, had holiness. It was totally not apparent on the surface. When you peel back the layers, I saw so much good. As the young prince says to his father, Father, I'm sorry. I failed you because I could not find a truly bad person. The king takes the crown off his head, places the crown on his young son's head and says, now you are ready to be king. You know, the mashal is so powerful. we have so much machlokes sometimes in our midst. And now again, the good byproduct of war is that war creates incredible unity, which is one of the most beautiful and holy byproducts of an nature of difficult times. But the truth is, war comes to an end, and we often retreat back into our own corners, and there's naturally machlokes. It's okay, we argue, we disagree. And so often just machlokes happens in different ways. And even if it's not so global, just how much machlokes happens in our homes because a husband and wife, hurt each other and they do something that's negative. And in that moment, all I see are my wife's failings. And I forget about all of the incredible history. Maybe it wasn't perfect, but there was so much good. Or when my children don't live up to my expectations. And at the end of the day, I'm so disappointed, I'm so upset. But I forget about all of those beautiful moments of simcha that came before me. Or in community, it happens that people argue, people get upset. What about when we had that l'chaim together and things were so good? And what about when we celebrated our simchas together and things were so beautiful? We so often just look at each other through the prism of the present, and we forget about all of the beauty and all of the good and all of the bracha that preceded it. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu was doing to us, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu calls him out for it. He says, what are you doing? What are you doing? I got it. They're difficult. They're impossible. But that's now. That's through the prism of the present. What about all the beautiful good that occurred before? What about all the other stuff? Don't just look at them through the prism of the present, but remember all the beautiful things that came before and believe in all of the beautiful things that will come in the future. And at the end of the day, isn't this what we ask of HaKadosh Baruch Hu as well? Because we all sin, we all mess up, we all have our Mei Mariva moments where we're just impossible, difficult, and terrible. In those moments, I lift my eyes, I want to say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I got it. I'm not that much to look at right now, but I have two things to ask you. Remember me for what I was, because once upon a time I was pure, and once upon a time I was good, and once upon a time I was holy, and once upon a time I had it together. So don't just look at me for what I am now. Look at me for what I was, and you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, live in past, present, and future. Believe in what I can become. Believe in the person I can be, not just who I am. And I think, dear friends, if we avoid the pitfall of looking at each other solely through the prism of the present, but give each other that historical benefit of the doubt and that historical of all the good times in the past, and believe in the beauty that we could each possess going forward. If we could do that for each other, then we have the ability to ask that of HaKadosh Baruch Hu as well. If we could do that for each other, then even in moments when we are debased and we are ruined and we are broken, then we have the ability to say to Hashem, don't look at me now. Look at me for what I was, and look at me, Emerson, for who I can become. If we could do it for one another, then we could ask for that same treatment by HaKadosh Baruch Hu as well. Halavai, we should all be zocha. Wishing everyone a good Erev Shabbos and a beautiful Shabbos Kodesh.